me when you're gone. It's BBC Radio Lancashire. Welcome to the show. It's Nish with you this Thursday afternoon. My guest is in the studio already. We're talking about Veganuary because Alex McKay. I'll do a proper introduction for you. But you've done Veganuary, haven't you?
Briefly, yeah. It was an adventure. I was at uni when I tried it out, and then I remember I was halfway through it, and I said, "Oh, guys, I've gone vegan." And she went, "You just put mayo on your plate." I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that."
You can get vegan mayo, by the way.
I know,
now.
I was hoping they wouldn't have noticed.
The thing is, I've realised that I have tried vegan cheese when I've been out and about, and it's not been too bad, depending. But when I bought it, the smell.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the back room listening to you talking about the cheese, and I thought the first thing they're going to have to mention is the smell.
Yeah.
Because it tastes okay.
It's the smell, though.
But it just stinks the whole place out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give you a proper introduction. My tea break this afternoon is about a Lancashire man who's raising money for the victims of the Pakistan floods. Now, months after the devastating floods, millions remain homeless and need shelter. That's according to aid volunteers still out there. Now, up to 33 million people were affected, and a UN report said about 8 million are still potentially exposed to floods or live close to affected areas. Well, Alex McKay, who you've just heard from, is from Preston and has an interest in third world countries and the issues and problems they face. Now, he recently went out to Pakistan and documented it as well. And I'm pleased to say Alex joins me in the studio. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk about your experience and your trip to Pakistan in just a moment. But like I said, you're a local lad.
Yeah.
You're from Preston.
Definitely, yeah.
How and why did you get interested in documenting third world countries' problems?
Oh, honestly, it was just by chance. I mean, I'd gone down to Bristol for university, and I'd studied politics, and I'd learned about the political order. And long story short, I was about to become an accountant, and my friend turned around to me and said, "Alex," he's from Spain. He's like, "Alex, man, I'm going to go to Afghanistan." I'm like, "Okay." It works out. But we had to go to Pakistan to get the visas. And when we arrived there, we just realised the sheer magnitude of the disaster.
Was that around the time when you went during the floods, or?
It was a few months after. This was like September time.
Right.
So it was sort of, the floods had already happened. It was like August time, I think. But when you went to the areas, honestly, we're talking just to get to a village, it was half an hour by boat. People completely waterlocked. The water was 15 feet deep.
Completely submerged
Yeah,
in
completely
water.
submerged. Like, I remember we went to Sindh, which is one of the worst affected parts, and it's like more than 3 million acres is completely underwater. And we went to a village, and just to get there, we had to rent a boat, and it was half an hour by water to reach this completely waterlogged village. So imagine if you live there and you're poor, there is no way of you getting help. And we met a family, and their daughter had malaria, and they had no access to healthcare. And just by, we helped them out. We took them by boat to the local tent. You just think, people have been abandoned here. You know what I mean? It's by climate change. The interest just came. It wasn't like just by chance, just by chance. But when you're there and you look someone in the eye and you realise that we're the same. We just were born in different places. And that's why you care, because it could have been you.
And that's why you set out to raise money, did
Definitely.
you?
It was, honestly, it was sheer frustration, because we were filming a documentary over there to share, but this documentary wouldn't be released for a while. It had to be edited. And these people needed help right now.
Yeah.
So just on one afternoon, just out of sheer frustration, I wrote a fundraiser. And my friends know me. I being from the north, I try and be quite humble. I don't ask for things. But when they saw me write this massive piece and a plea for help, they realised how serious it was. I'd seen 3-year-olds with malaria, and I'd seen so much. And you know what I mean? If you just see it, but imagine if you're experiencing it. I wrote a plea, and my friends trusted me, and we raised around £500 for the victims. And, I remember we were in this, people are living on the flood walls, like 50 kilometres long, in makeshift tents. And the only remaining structure was a school. And there were 20 families living there, young children, mothers with nothing. So I just thought, I have to help these people. Me and my friend, we'd given all our money in cash, but we thought we need to get them food bags, we need to get them mosquito nets. And luckily my friends helped out. And
the thing is, you didn't expect to see all this, because you didn't you didn't go out. You didn't set to go out to Pakistan, did you? You were there just to get visas, to experience all this.
Yeah.
You then stayed on, didn't you? And then documented, all everything that you could see, the victims, the devastation. I mean, Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has urged international communities to provide urgent assistance. What were you seeing there? Because there were so many volunteers. I mean, we've spoken to volunteers from here, from Lancashire, who've been out there as well. What did you see in that respect in terms of aid and help?
Honestly, from what I saw, it wasn't. There was some help from NGOs, but there wasn't enough. I mean, abandonment is a word I don't use lightly, but from the voices of the people, they just there was nothing. And I'm sure there were journalists and stuff, and I'm sure there was help, but the sheer magnitude. I mean, we're talking about a disaster that was 33 million people, and estimates have said it's 50 million. And the destruction's been estimated to be $30 billion from climate change. And I read some stats from the UN and things, and they said aid from the West has been around, it's been a few hundred million. So there's a huge discrepancy between what's needed. But, I saw people who were starving. I've talked to many, many locals, and, domestic NGOs are trying to help their best, but they just haven't got the infrastructure. And for example, I was talking to a 70-year-old man who was living on a flood wall with his family. And he said to me, the camp hadn't received any food aid in over 3 weeks. And I said, well, how are you feeding yourself? And he said, we aren't. And that's where the plea of just these people need help. You know what I mean?
With this documentary then, you filmed it with your friend. What's the idea behind it? When is it coming out, or what you're doing with it? Are you still working on it, or have you finished it? Have you completed it?
We've finished the filming, and we're just currently getting it edited. And we don't really know. All we want to do right now is share awareness, because the footage is heartbreaking. When I was filming it, I was mostly the cameraman. I was almost in tears behind the camera. So it's to share awareness of, firstly, what the effects of climate change are on developing countries, and secondly, it's to show the effects of this disaster. And I think ultimately it's about raising money for the people. I mean, I'm one man, and £500 is a lot for me, but we hope to get this film out, and we hope that film would then lead to further funds being raised, because this disaster isn't over. Sure, the floods are finished, but there's a great famine crisis. Exactly. There's a great famine crisis coming, because most of Pakistan is agriculture, and their crops are flooded. And there's been estimates saying it's going to be a year for most people without income. And so you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like, these people are. And
you're already a quarter away, through that 1 year period as well. So there's not long to go. Bad. Stay with us, Alex. Lots more to talk about, because you've not just filmed in Pakistan. You then went on to Afghanistan, and that was your aim from the start, wasn't it? Yeah. Stay with us. We'll talk about that.
Leave your keys if you're not coming home. I'll be waiting.
Kinder Crow, I'll be waiting. On BBC Radio Lancashire. Nish with you this Thursday afternoon. Welcome to the show. We're talking to Alex McKay. He's from Preston. He's been raising money for the victims of the Pakistan floods. He actually went out there with one of his friends to document the issues and problems faced in Pakistan after the floods as well. Alongside Pakistan, obviously that wasn't your aim. Your aim when you went to Pakistan was to get your visas to go to Afghanistan, because you were working on making a film in Afghanistan. Just tell me about that. What was it about?
So, the film in Afghanistan was about child labour there, and obviously child labour exists in many parts of the world, but Afghanistan it's had 20 years of war, and I wanted to share the effects of, firstly, the war, but secondly, the effects of the economic sanctions from the West on how it's impacting children, because obviously we've heard the atrocities against women's rights in Afghanistan, and it's terrible. But when I was actually there, I saw that the situation with children was just as bad. And unfortunately, they're so young that they don't have their own voice. They think it's normal. And it was important for me to share their suffering with the developed world of, like, this is the impact of politics and having 20 years of war, and this is what happens when you try and punish the Taliban. That it's the local people who are suffering, and it's really, really bad.
Yeah. We'll talk more in just a second. Just some quick traffic updates. There's congestion on the M55 leading to the M6 South, and traffic is taking around about 20 minutes to get through at the moment. So that's congestion on the M55 leading to the M6 South. Traffic is taking around about 20 minutes to get through at the moment. We'll keep you updated when we get further more information on that. Whilst your time in Afghanistan, that was a solo project, wasn't it? You were on your own. I mean, wow.
Mental.
You know,
it was mental.
what went through your mind, and what was the experience? I mean,
it was naivety. No, it's I think Pakistan was supposed to be a side project and became our main project. So we'd spent a month over there, and my friend Omar wanted to film about women over there, and I wanted to do my own project about children working over there. So we went our separate ways, and it meant that I had to go into Afghanistan alone, and that was absolutely terrifying. Yeah, I mean.
Did you have any contacts there, or what were you?
That's what's funny is like, I only realized that I was going alone maybe 2 days before flying out, when I had friends of friends, and when I landed, fortunately, someone was there waiting for me, like a friend of a friend, and his name was Nazim, and Nazim, he was unbelievable to me. Like, he kept me safe for 2 weeks there. We had Taliban come to our hotel room with AK-47s. We had ISIS trying to kidnap me. I mean, Nazim got kidnapped by ISIS when I left, and he's been released, but it's a dangerous place for foreigners.
So why did you go then?
Why did I go? That's a very good question. I feel like when you're a journalist, you have a duty to help people, and I'd gone that far, and I realized if I stopped now and went back home, I would have let the people down. And when I went into Afghanistan, I realized how bad the situation was. There was children as young as 2 on the street selling bread. 90% of people in Afghanistan have been estimated to be in poverty, and I was with 9-year-olds in coal mines, toddlers working in outdoor brick factories. So you know what I mean? Like, if I'd gone home and not done that project, I would have let them down. They deserve a voice in the world, and I felt like no one had provided any help. And I talked to the parents of those children to try and not villainize them and try to give them a voice, and they said, if we could, we would send them to school, but we can't. We're literally like, we're dying. So it was important for someone who is from the West, who is from Europe, to go out and give them a voice, an unbiased voice in the world. So that was the main project. Yeah.
You're now working on releasing your documentary, aren't you? I mean, how's that coming along?
It's going okay. It's the only issue is watching the footage back, because it's just so heartbreaking. I've released snippets on my Instagram, and I've got articles and some footage on my website, but it's slowly getting there.
What's your aim from this document? Yeah, what's your aim from these documentaries? What you're hoping for?
Well, 2 things. I think firstly, it's to raise funds, because these people really need help. But secondly, it's to spread awareness. I feel like people just don't understand yet, and if I manage to spread a little bit of awareness in where we live now in the developed world, at least people know. At least if they talk a little bit more, it puts a little bit more pressure on the governments to help. It's like there's many issues in the world. There's a cost of living crisis happening right now, but if people understand what's going on in the world, maybe there might be some difference. There might be a little bit of change. So that's what I'm trying to do.
What's next for you then? Because you've filmed 2, haven't you? Pakistan and Afghanistan. You're still working on them. Yeah. Hopefully near completion.
Hope so.
What's next for Alex then?
It's a good question. I think I've just left University of Bristol, and I'm pursuing a career in journalism. And I, doing these projects opened my eyes to why I wanted to be a journalist. You're there to make an impact for these people, to give them a voice in the world, to question power. So for me, I think it's finding a journalist role that fits my desires, and I hope that one day I do more projects, because I've never felt so alive and so meaningful going over there and helping people.
Well, I was going to
honestly.
ask you that, you've obviously experienced
Yeah.
going there, filming there, meeting the victims. What have you taken from it?
Unbelievable amount of gratitude. I mean, I think everyone gets all caught up in the rat race, and even I do now. But I remember I was there for a month and a half, and I'd seen so much suffering. And I should say that the people in Pakistan and Afghanistan are the kindest people I've ever met. And I was in a coal mine with a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old working. They never complained to me once. And I landed in Heathrow and someone was complaining that the lift was too slow. I just thought, oh my God. So what I've taken away is how lucky we are, how lucky I am. And just like, do your bit. Try and do your bit. We all have our own problems in life, but we have it so lucky.
If people want to check out your work and they want to donate towards these two causes, how can they do that, Alex?
That would be amazing. So my website is www.alexanderthomasmackay, and Mackay spelled MACKY.com. My Instagram's on there. It's __Mackay, MACKAY. There's a donate button. And I think even if you can't donate, just have a look and just understand what's going on. At least if you know, and just talk about it with people. At least it's not a silent voice in the world. At least some people know, and some people might talk about it and help out. So that's, if you've got the time, please go and check it out. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the people over there who are suffering.
Lovely. Pleasure having you in the studio. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
That's Alex Mackay from Preston, as you've been hearing there, who's been raising money for the victims of the Pakistan floods and for the victims in Afghanistan as well.
BBC Radio Lancashire.
Join me,